Not bad. Thank you. Yeah. 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 But this is a rated G lecture, so we're not going to go into the details of his demise. That is not for happy time like this. The particular title here is not what appeared, I think, in the syllabus, because it appeared for a lesser man, his brother-in-law, King Henry III. Now, King Henry III had a long reign. Won't be, you don't have to know this, 1216 to 1272. But that's a long time for a medieval king. And yet, I think if you were to go around and say, quick, who is Henry III? You would get some shrugs. Of course, they know John. Everybody knows King John. Well, most everybody. I'm not going to say everybody. That's a little much. And maybe a lot of people know Edward the First. Edward Longshanks, movie fans, yes. So, how many would know Henry III? You will. Yes, thanks to Ollie. Yes. So, where did he go? He got replaced because obviously Simon de Montfort is a lot more important. He didn't live as long, but he certainly made a very, very significant contribution. What you see here comes from, yes, our nation's capital. That's right. It actually is an illustration from the capital. There are, of course, many illustrations of him in England itself, but this one I just thought that was interesting, that should be in Washington because of his influence. And of course, we'll see illustrations in England as well. But Simon de Montfort's reputation, I suspect, in the day was outlaw, bad person, and of course, a person who was divided. And I mean that literally, which is very ugly to think about, but hey, we got to have the Enlightenment before we stop doing the sorts of things they did to him. Back to Henry III. Remember, he was just a child when his father, King John, died. And so when we think of Henry III, we think of what's it like to be a 9-year-old who becomes the monarch. I'm thinking you have a lot of other things on your mind, and so had to grow up before he took power. And meantime, of course, there was his mother who had her own agenda. She was very busy dating websites. Yeah. Yeah, because let's face it, I don't think she got over John pretty fast. I mean, the widow's weeds did not stay on long. Then I expect she was probably barely out of her teens anyway. So that said, the regency of the great nobles, including clergy, bishops, and such, would rule in in Henry's name. And of course, it included a special deputy from everybody's favorite bishop in Rome. And you say, but why? Well, some will remember when King John made himself a vassal of the Pope. And remember, these kind of commitments don't expire. This is non-expiring. It's like popes may change and kings may change, but this is like paying your bills. I mean, it's not like they're going to say, don't worry about it. You have to pay. This payment, and there was a payment, had to be made. And the Pope's representatives had authority here. So that was going on. And meanwhile, while growing up, the French issue is continuing. In fact, you remember I told you about the future French king. He was still around. Remember, just because John died, the French had a sort of support wing against the regency. So this was a very, very bad thing. In other words, this regency was coming into a lot of problems. And it is possible, it's interesting to imagine, what if the French had taken over England? It seems odd. We usually think about the English being in France, but now we have it the other way around for a time. And of course, the nobility, I mean, everything seems to be a problem. And it's interesting to imagine, since all the accounts say that Henry was a very well-educated individual, when he took power at the age of 19, whether or not he was ready, it's hard to say, but he assumed it, and I presume that the powerful elements around him did not try to prevent this. It's interesting to think about, though. He had problems with France. He had problems with family, as we are about to see. In fact, there was nothing you could say that would be easy. And Henry will not go down, and of course, as one of the great kings of England. I mean, it's nice that you know about him, because when you kind of show off, look what I learned at Ollie, you say, oh, the Plantagenets, yeah, Henry III, 1216 to 1272. It will be impressive, but not so much because of him. He had all the usual problems. He had favorites. He sometimes did not wish to hear or even take the advice of those powerful people around him. The magnates, as the book would call them. In other words, all the great people who are around him. And of course, he had a problem that I guess all rulers have, and that is family. He has to deal with them. And he is not exactly got the right kind of personality. He gets a little peevish, a little irritated. What do they call these? Mercurial. I love that word. So he blows off steam at people and just probably would have done better. I mean, doing architectural work like Edward the Confessor. Yeah. Loved being involved in the reconstruction of Westminster Abbey, which costs a fortune to go see if you just be prepared to suck it up. Yeah, because you want to see it, and it's just a beautiful edifice. And you can thank Edward the Confessor and Henry III while you're there and give your love offering. But all of that is to say that you think of all the years and all the matters that he had to deal with. there were some very distinguished people who were on that regency, and he had to deal with them because of their great prominence. But then when he was getting 19, it's like, now I'm in control. And they had to deal with that. Now, these depictions of the two women, I would not say Olin Mills didn't do them, but we can understand that that is the way they are portrayed. You'll notice his mother, and you'll remember that was a somewhat strange marriage. She had already been engaged, and Isabella von Grudem, and she will have had by John 3 or 4 children. By the next husband, get ready, count them, 9. I know. Maternity is alive and well in the Middle Ages. Yeah, you say they keep on coming. I mean, it's absolutely amazing to me. Isn't it good we have people who can help? A lot of assistance because she had a social life, right? So yeah, and she was very political. Anyway, she had an exciting life as the mother of the king. And then he married Eleanor of Provence. And again, if you want a nice vacation, go to Provence. Many of you have been there. It's just beautiful. But the ruler there had 4 daughters. And I know, and you say, oh, well, I bet that was just all love. Well, maybe, but it was also about power and how can they be useful. Because that particular business meant that the King of France would marry one of them, King of England would marry one, all kinds of rulers, Sicily. These women, in other words, of course, were daddy's girls. So even though they got married, you say, yeah, but now you are mine. I love you. You're my everything. No, you're daddy. Yeah. So you think, so Eleanor's sisters were powerful in their own right. You're mighty right, because think about this. The kings of France and England were married to sisters. I know. And think about all the reunions and all the get-togethers and all of the intrigue and power plays. All kinds of interesting items come as a result of Eleanor. And then something filthy, not like some of de Montfort's demise, but filthy in the sense of appointing of relatives and friends to office. I know that isn't right. Is that based on merit? Do they have to take exams? I don't think so. This involves, of course, people who come from Provence. They were called Provençals, Savoyards. But whatever the case, they were not native to England. I guess they all did Latin, so, or maybe a form of French. But the idea of why they were coming in, clearly it's because they were related to the Count and his daughter, Queen Eleanor. Please, honey, can't my uncle become Archbishop of Canterbury? Yeah, that is what happened. That's the truth. His name was Boniface. Good name. But very strange situation. Now, Isabella, guess who she married, number 2? You remember she was engaged, yeah, before she married. Remember how that was? And now she will marry as husband number 2, his son. And you say, yeah, I mean, he was more like her age because she was like a young teenager and he was the first man was middle-aged or something. So that destroys that whole Romeo and Juliet business right off the bat. So now he marries, and it seemed like a perfect political setup because they both live in that very important part of France. And she will probably, I guess, do a lot of traveling. I mean, we know commuters. So going back and forth between Poitou, remember that was her homeland. Now hubby's there. I mean, you got to get together for those 9 pregnancies, right? Yeah. So obviously, it's a very busy life. I know we think of back then everything was leisurely. It doesn't seem very leisurely to me. Very busy. Now, what does she have? Family who have needs. Her children. In other words, Henry's little brothers-in-law or half brothers. And you're thinking all of these need positions. I mean, it's nepotism in the extreme, because if it's not a Savoyard, if it's not somebody connected to your wife, somebody connected to your mother. So all of these, it keeps you busy thinking, no civil service, mind you, because we've got bishoprics to fill. We've got all kinds of things. So that is, I expect, more than a minor issue. And you're thinking, I wonder how this goes over with the English nobility. If they had ratemyking.com, I think, he would already start with a 2-star, wouldn't you think? I don't think highly rated. I'm not blaming them. I mean, they just took opportunities on the basis of their families. But I am noting to you that that does become a very major issue. Oh boy. I think that's about 19th century portrayal, maybe 20th. Well educated. I really do emphasize that because, of course, but maybe great grandparents and so forth would not have had this kind of education. And it didn't include history and all and religion and all the rest. So we assume that he was very, very versed, and of course, particularly so in the case of his Catholic faith. And that is serious. His piety was for him very sincere. Is it helpful? Well, not necessarily, maybe to him, but in terms of what he thought and what he did, it can sometimes lead to being swayed by others to make decisions that are not good, because he was always, as we know, have money needs. And you think, wait, I know people like this. Well, this is the biggest example of someone who needed to go fund me or, one of those kind of programs, because he was always after more, always running out, running short. And this would be a major problem. Due to his piety, he expected the church, use a vulgar term, cough up. Because you know what I'm doing? I am a crusader for righteousness. And you said, but he didn't go on a crusade. Well, no, but he liked it very much. I mean, it's like a crusader at heart, that kind of thing. Because crusading was very cool. very cool at this time. We'll talk more about that. And it's like he's one of the very few rulers of the day who doesn't go on. I think, well, as we're going to see, he had other projects and he supported the Pope. I don't want to say he's a sycophant, but getting close. He really loved his Pope. And all in all, then, the crusading was significant in this period. But the schemes and the money needs, because of all of his many, shall we call them projects that weren't always successful. But anytime you have projects, you got to pay for them. You can, I mean, he could have studied or just, pursued scholarly interests and all that. But as far as being a successful king, you say, but aren't there limitations on what a king can do? You're mighty right. Magna Carta had become a reality. I think during Henry's reign, the regency had more or less edited it and put it out for the edification of those who could read and write. In other words, it seemed like solid law, if you want to know the truth. How much people would carry it out, respect, it's another story. But at least it was considered to be the right thing at this point. So it's not like, yeah, I'm going to abolish Magna Carta and I'm next to God and all of that. How he acted and what was officially stated were very different. Because, of course, like most kings, Henry wanted, oh, I want to do that. Let me do that. It's like, I should have this right. And then, of course, his advisors would say, but let's remember Magna Carta. So, what kinds of projects does he have? Well, obviously, by this point, the French had given up their adventures in England. And now Henry wants to get back the lands his father lost. That is King John of poor memory, yes. Yeah. That is terrible, isn't it, when you have to say, oh, Daddy was such an outstanding ruler. Oh, no, he wasn't. Yeah. It's like, yeah, can't say too much good about Papa. But all in all, he had this dream of, I want to get all this back. All that territory, it's really mine. And when they got together, I guess, for family outings, and he got together with his brother-in-law. Now, does everybody know how that works? Of course you do. It was because the wives were sisters. See, you're going to make an A. I can tell. Because that little bit of drama, I mean, that must have been amazing when the English and French kings got together. And I guess if it was a family outing, you wouldn't say, Louis, Henry, how's it going? And then you want to talk about lands and all of that. Because despite being a saint, I'm not sure Louis IX intended that all of these lands be given back. Saintly people do a lot of nice things, but maybe not that. In any event, he needed heavy-duty financing, that is King Henry, for his French projects. But his demands for money and his very mediocre ruling skills led him to yet another in-law. That I know. Oh, indeed. It all starts at those unfortunate Thanksgivings, doesn't it? Just when you've had a delicious, what we have, mincemeat pie or those other things, and you think, boy, I hope they can leave soon. But instead they stay. Now, talk about Anglo-French. That's our Simon de Montfort. Simon came from a very prominent French family. That's right. And like so many Anglo-French, it was either his grandmother or great-grandmother who was actually an English baroness, great landowner. So Simon, being, a younger son, not the one who takes over his father, he is going to try to get those English lands in what, and many of you have been there, the area called Leicester. Now, what kind of family does he come from? Well, I can tell you what kind of family. They are go-getters. The de Montforts were big in the church. I mean, Notre Dame football team, watch out. These de Montforts, they were ready. They were and talk about crusades. This was an internal crusade, but it was, and some of you know it from the medieval course, this was a crusade against people who considered French heretics called Albigensians. And Simon de Montfort, the father of this man, was one of the major figures, cutting them down. I mean, it's beautiful way down South France. He was the leader, the King of France, Louis VIII. Many people would say in part it's a land grab, but it's also, of course, all about we are crusading for truth and righteousness and the French way. Sorry. Yeah, I know. Super Catholic, I guess you would say. So it's very interesting when you think about this family. Then we think about Simon de Montfort, our Simon de Montfort. He had lots of French/Catholic influence. So many people have suggested in that biography, for example, that much of what he is going to do, he sees as a crusade. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for the church, for God. It's an interesting idea. He, as a result of having land, he will be able to, I hate to say it this way, worm his way into Henry's confidence. And Henry's reaction is, I have a sister and she's, I don't say available, she's a widow. And it was one of those young old things. Her first husband, Eleanor was one of those names like Matilda a few generations before. You did lots of Eleanors, yeah. So you think, aren't you glad you have to fill in the blank? Yeah, because between the Eleanors and Matildas, it'd be rough. You need a lot of both. But on Jeopardy, you'd be a great star, and you got all these people right. In any event, Eleanor was available because her husband who had been an advisor of both King John and in the regency of Henry. He died after a few years of marriage. And Eleanor did something that seemed to have been not uncommon. I guess this was because they got so tired of marrying older men. She took a vow of chastity. And not a convent. She wasn't going that far. It's sort of like midway. Just not marrying again. But I guess she started dating Simon, and she said, you know, that vow of chastity, I'm going to take that back. Just teasing. So I think I'm going to date again. And believe you me, you know how folks gossip and backbite? Yeah. They talked ugly about her. You know, maybe she was having an affair. It's not going to be a Hallmark movie, but it's basically Eleanor is now going to marry Simon. And you can say, well, what difference does that make? Plenty, yes. You know, my wife and I were talking, pillow talk. Yeah. So he'll say, hon, yes, darling Simon. You know, sometimes I think your brother is a little slow. He's not that good. I know, baby, because you're number one. You know how you try to build them up, make them feel like they're the greatest. So it seemed to be an interesting factor when he will, as one of Henry's advisors, and his Eleanor's husband, I guess you'd say, become increasingly critical of him. At one point, he will, of course, he'll have many important jobs being in the royal administration. And one position he will get is like the royal administrator for the remaining French territory. And you say, I wonder what that is. Think wine here. Okay, go south and think wine. The Gascon area, the Bordeaux. He was in charge of that. And this is significant because in later years, there will be some talk, I'm going to say an ugly word now, malfeasance. Oh, I know. It's awful. I'm sure no one from Illinois would know about corruption. No. No. Sometimes there can be some greasy palms. Now, was Simon guilty of this? Well, some of them witnesses would say he had been a corrupt and basically poor leader of this territory. Oh, we hear about trumped up charges and all that, and it may have been. I mean, this is a man who was very serious and upright in his own view. Believe me, he had no doubts about himself. He didn't have any, ego problems or like, gosh, Henry, maybe I was wrong. I love you very much. No, I think he was pretty sure he was right and Henry was a big old loser. And he had plenty of wifely reinforcement. So no problem there. So this is going to be a problem. Now they did have good years. I don't want to say that this all ended so quickly, but I do want to say that this will come to be a problem. But he is a reality, Simon de Montfort. Even when he's in Gascony, you see, His wife may have been still close to the king, who would say, hon, I think you ought to do this and that, because Simon said that you were not as effective a leader as you could be. So kind of get busy on that. Oh, sis, that kind of thing. So yeah, it could be very difficult. And now for the greatest flop of all, of the place that so many of us love and know. No, not because of the mafia, but because of its tremendous medieval heritage. And many of you know this about Sicily and its beauty and its significance to the medieval period. And why? Because that was the major stopping point on the way to the Holy Land. It was, of course, of great interest to virtually every political leader in the Middle Ages. Because of the fact that you have not only Italians interested in it, but you have, I can separate the popes. And let's never forget those tricky folk in Constantinople. The Orthodox, yeah. Greek is spoken here, Alpha and Omega. Yeah, let's go. It's all about that particular area. And we all know how important these marriages are. So let's go way back. No trees. So no family trees. I'm going to keep this relatively simple. And you'll be thankful because it could get ugly if I got into. Oh, you say, Hohenstaufen. Why are they involved? I thought they were up north. That's what marriage will do for you. Yeah. You remember Frederick Barbarossa? Well, who could forget it? Yeah. No World War II book. In any event, he would marry his son, who had become, this is a very original name, Henry VI. I know, I love Henry. Very popular name. Very funny. He actually married his son to the heiress to Sicily. And who were these Sicilian rulers? They were Normans. We get around the Normans, yeah. So they had become rulers of that area. Remember, there's no Italy back then. So this is a separate area. And wouldn't you like to rule it? I mean, thinking it would be really nice. Lots of good wine and the agriculture. I can't say too many nice things about Sicily. In any event, so it appears that would end this Norman family's rule, and now looks like the Germans have it under Henry the Sixth. And you say, oh, what joy. Well, not if you're in the Vatican. And you say, what does the Vatican care about this? Have you ever heard about sometimes it can be too close for comfort, back off a little? Well, that was the feeling about the Hohenstaufens. They're up here. But being down here, I don't know. That's not going to work. We have a relationship, Emperor and Pope, dynamic duo. But then you come south, back off, a little too close. So the Pope, I should say the popes, but this is an ongoing project. I guess you'd say Hohenstaufen elimination. And it will go on. It starts with a pope who took the title, not from Genoa, nice family from Genoa. He took the title Innocent Fourth. I wonder where he got that. Maybe Innocent Third wannabe. Yeah. You know, have a picture of him up there like Rocky, and when he's working out and thinking, I'm going to bring those laymen down. And that is exactly what he was trying to do. His representatives in England, they there, you know, saying, we love you, and I know you love us. You want to do the will of the church and the Holy Father. Yes, I do. I know so much. Lapdog, yeah. And so he said, you know what would really help His Holiness? If you were to take this Sicily project, we have someone and a certain German family that need to be eliminated from Sicily because they are really not satisfactory. Now, who do we have in mind? Well, the son of Henry VI, Frederick II. Now, Dante lovers will know he made hell. I mean, you have to really work at it, but this is a really important role. You know, who's who in Dante? Dante Inferno. Henry III made it to purgatory. It's sort of like he meant well, but he was really a loser, you know, and of course, he made some boo-boo, but he didn't go into hell. But the Dane, Frederick II, and he had been ruler of Sicily, as well as being emperor. Even though Lord knows he'd been excommunicated. Let's just say he and the Pope were not close. So you talk about wanting to have a holy war. When Frederick II died, again, you have to know this, 1250. But I know that many of you have mental sponges and you will just get all of this, and I praise you for it. But more or less, Frederick II's son and his illegitimate son will try to keep the Sicilian business going for them. And of course, this is going to lead to war. Now, I don't think I need to tell you, many of you have careers or have family and careers who have military positions, and you'll realize that war is rather costly. It's hard to have a budget war, right? So we understand no Costco war. We're going to pay full scale. And the Pope had, or I should say the papacy had, shall we say, tremendous financial resources in order to help out finances. But you can't just get rid of Hohenstaufens, as great as that will be. We've got to have somebody who's going to rule over that land, and somebody who loves Peter. And you know what Peter I'm talking about. The big pig, yes. So, who will do this? Who is the person we can go to? Yes, number one choice, Henry's younger son. And you say, gosh, that is so flattering. I mean, yeah, I'm all, just so happy. You think my son could do this? His name was Edmund. I'm sure he's a nice young man. And you say, well, why the younger one? Well, the older one has something else to do. He's going to be king of England. So we need to pass around these things, and little, little Eddie, he'll enjoy it. And Sicily's great. We all love that. We can come there on vacations or whatever. So they lure poor Henry in that way. Is he duped? Well, I mean, he's a grown man. But whenever somebody offers you things, you have to ask yourself, and this is ugly, what's it gonna cost me? He said, well, there's some tidying up to do. Oh God. I mean, it's like this is a trap. And Henry goes right into it. I don't think his advisors said, this is a great project. We really want you to invest heavily in Sicily. We've got, you got your to-do list. And you think, gosh, but all that oil and all that wine, it's going to be so profitable. You don't think about the economic opportunities of Sicilian development. And of course, I want to please the Holy Father. So, Edmund is now made the new would-be king of Sicily against the Hohenstaufen candidate. Oh, all of this is bad to worse. The popes, as they will, go on. They are elected, and they all support the project. The project of the English going in as more or less papally supported rulers. And if you're part of that German gang, you are losers. And you're losers now, and you're losers in the future, because you're going to HEW. Because damn you, yeah. That's ugly, but war is hell, they say. So this would appear clear in the case. So this Sicilian business for the English is a major project. Is that good? Yes, it's good, but there's some problems. Henry and his team, don't you call it teams now? Your administrative team, people from the exchequer come in and make a terrible discovery. Yes. Oh, she said it, Carol. Money, the filth of lucre. It'll kill you. Oh, what is it my student said to me? I was maxed out. I think, in our generation, we didn't do that sort of thing, but I'm thinking, yeah, that's not appropriate, yeah, to be maxed out. I think it's good to have enough money. So this was a serious problem if you want to have a war in Sicily. And of course, it's not that Henry wasn't out there fundraising. God, I mean, yeah. You think sometimes they go a little overboard raising money? Yeah, that Frank's didn't express my feeling altogether. Yeah, it's I don't know how people do it. Do you know there's a major there at Auburn? Yeah, in fundraising. That's how big it's gotten. Well, he worked those monasteries. I say work them. Yeah. Another donation, you'll get Henry loves you. Henry loves the Franciscans. Henry loves the Dominicans. But you need to give more. Yeah. Keep on giving. Yeah. For the Sicilian project. And you say, but that's just King's Wars. Oh, no. It's holy. Holy, holy. HOLY. Because We are fighting for righteousness, justice, and goodness against the filthy Hohenstaufen. Yeah. So, I mean, they must have played it, people who have developed these advancement programs. Yeah, I mean, it's not like going in and saying just this is just a wall war. We have some serious publicity and some work in those people. So they were given, and you'd say, well, that must have been very helpful. No, they never could get enough. Because I'm telling you, these wall wars were very expensive, and Henry was not good with money. You know, people like that. Yeah, that's what they always say. Somebody's just not good with money. It's just like you got your pocket, you know, you just can't, you just spend too much. All of that was very serious problem. I mean, it was so serious that the Pope sent Henry an ugly letter. And you say, but I thought they loved each other. Well, in a way. But when you get behind in your payment, the love can kind of disappear. You know what I mean? It's like, well, just keep up your payments on your Visa bill. Yeah, and that kind of thing. And you won't have to find out. But right now, they love us very much. But you get behind and, oh, you know, dear debtor, you know, say hurtful things like, and I've seen these letters, it's amazing. You think, where is the love? Well, it was a paycheck or two behind that he got behind in his payments. And what will happen in essence is that you're not going to believe this. This is what money will do. Henry was threatened with excommunication. And you're going like, oh no, not that. I mean, he was on his knees praying as hard as he could go all the time. And you said, but he's got a wonderful pro-church. Yeah, but your payments. I love you very much, but I need, remember when they used to say hard, cold cash? Yeah, that's what he wanted, the popes. So that's when you have these kinds of unpleasantness. So if you're going to have this kind of unpleasantness, then what do we finally have to say? It's over. There have been songs like that. I will not sing them, but we've had some good times. But Edmund is not going to be king of Sicily, so you need to find him another post. You say, well, do I get a refund? No refunds. I know you thought, oh, you know, you enter these things and then there's some sort of money back guarantee. Well, it doesn't work that way. Not when you offend the Holy Father. Yeah. So all of that war, you say, well, how did the English people feel? Well, among those that you would say counted at this particular stage, not well. It's called Operation Red Hole. It was all wasted. And I mean, little Edmund got all excited, and now he's hurt and disappointed. How's he going to feel about his dad? You know, you have to think about those things. Not too hard, though, because everything is going to be great in Sicily. Well, great. But we're going to have another candidate. And that candidate is Louis IX's younger brother, known as Charles of Anjou. Some of you may remember my discussing the Sicilian Vespers. Not very pleasant. But Charles of Anjou fit the bill of what the popes wanted. And Louis, who was usually very popular with the popes, not always, but for the most part, would say, my little brother would be a great king of Sicily. Your Holiness, your venerable one, I love you so much. Yeah.
There's some mine.
Yeah. And we could pick up all these bills and we could more or less carry out the will of your holiness against those Hohenstaufen. That's how Charles Borromeo become king. And of course, Sicilians versus French from now on, not our problem. But Charles of Anjou will now be crowned king of Sicily, and that will create, shall we say, a dynasty. But all, of course, the English have to show for it. Well, yeah, bill. Now, how reliable is Henry III in the bill paying? I would say not very. Yeah. I mean, I would, if I were a money lender, I've always wondered if I would enjoy being a banker, and I don't think so, because you have to turn down people for loans and you do hurtful things. And that's the kind of thing that kings had a way of repudiating debts. And that is hurtful to bankers. And I know some nice bankers. And I mean, and what do you say to a king? You say, please don't do that again. That hurts us and hurts our business. That kind of thing. I'm not sure they would go very far in getting a degree in business, but that is the idea of being extravagant or whatever you say, because as I say, there are no refunds. And Charles of Anjou is not going to say, gosh, let me really get this economy built up and I'll see how much money I can give you. Well, I mean, the French and the English are still, in a sense, fighting. It's a Cold War in many ways, because remember, the French have taken territory and technically the English still claim it. And it's sort of that thing, you go to bed at night and you say, someday we're getting it all back. And that will be another issue for poor Henry III, because that was how he hoped to move on. The relationship of Henry III with brother-in-law Louis IX, I do always wonder how these people deal with their relationships, because these are territorial issues. I mean, they go to the same church. They fight against heretics together. And maybe you have different cousins going on crusades and thinking, we're fighting. I mean, Louis probably liked Simon de Montfort and said, I'm so proud he's working for you. And, it's like family. They're good parts and bad parts. But all of that is not to say you can have a perfect relationship. Think about the Sicilian business. But then there is something else, and you know it well, Normandy and all those other territories. This was ours. And many of you have been to Normandy and you know the size. Think of the income and think of the number of English nobles who still had kinfolks back there and were thinking, wouldn't it be great if we could all come back together? Because of the economic value of all that land. So, all of that was Normandy. And then think of the area of Poitou. Now, obviously, you know, but just in case, guess who's in Poitou? Mama. Yes. All of that's very important. It's interesting to think of Isabel and Hugh, new husband. Well, he's not new. Not they got 9 children. I would say you have to have time. I'm just saying. This idea of interest in Poitou, because there are mixed English and French interests there. And Isabella was quite the player. Yeah, Henry's mother. So meanwhile, then the issue is, how is this going to play into the relationship of Henry and Louis? Well, you can imagine, for all the saintliness, I mean, Louis becomes a saint as of 1298. And I mean, this is, as getting to be a saint, that's pretty fast. I mean, yeah, I know. Think of Joan of Arc. It took centuries. I think it's 1921. I think I'm wrong. But sometimes you're on the fast track, and then there's the slow track. Yeah. So when you put my name in, it won't occur right away. It might be the 22nd.
How much money do you have?
Oh my. Oh, malfeasance. Yes. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, but because I thought I was gonna get it on my merit, but no. Gotta be
slow.
okay. Well, meanwhile, there is this bad relationship. And let's face it, Henry's not in a very good bargaining position. Because Henry can go to Paris and say, Louis. And the 2 ladies get together, the 2 queens, yeah. But then there's always a question, do we dare bring it up? Because they had festivals and, these, they didn't have, like we do, Showtime or any of that. So they got to learn how to make a lot of conversation and eat and drink. Like, I'm going to have indigestion. But nevertheless, it's true to say that if you were a Henry or a Louis, would you bring up Normandy? No. I mean, that would be hurtful. Now you would really have some indigestion. I mean, that people, yeah, what about Normandy? You remember your dad took it from Montfort? Yeah. Especially if wine's involved. Sometimes, how alcohol. Anyway, finally, it's going to be almost a put up, a shut up scenario. This relationship, and Louis and his advisors, for whatever reason, offered Henry what you'd call a way to opt out. Yeah. Let's come together. I know that sounds like a song from the 70s, but basically, peace in our time. I am holy and venerable. I'm Louis. I mean, that's what I'm all about. So, my erring brother, you will become once again a vassal to me, because remember, that's your daddy and my daddy, until bad vassal. Yeah, that was remember King John and Philip Augustus. Yeah, you don't need to be reminded. Ugliness, the breaking of the sacred vassalage to the Lord. Yeah. But we're going to start that again. And this time it'll be beautiful. Because I'm a saint and you're you. Yeah. So 1259. Can you imagine you hear about negotiations all the time nowadays? But I can promise you, I could tell them. But back in my day, in the 1259 period, that was negotiated. And a lot of folks fussing, a lot of English representatives in Paris. Yeah, wouldn't you like to be in Paris? And yeah, they were very much talking to their French counterparts before this finally happened. But more or less in this Treaty of Paris, King Henry is going to do what people thought no English king would ever do. And that is admit the loss of Normandy. Yeah. And you say, that is not any of them a happy time. I mean, I'm sure they had nice meetings and lots of festivities. Medieval people did lots of that. But the end is Henry renounces Normandy. I don't know whether he was like, and then had his hands behind it, but he took the oath. He swore it by the Trinity and this and that and the other. And of course, Louis, according to the sources, said, "Oh, how blessed this moment is. Our peace has been restored. From war cometh the joy of peace." But he is a saint, so what can I say? Saint Louis. So there you go. So we have these nice quotations. But seriously, all of this is to say that the treaty restored the feudal relationship. I mean, they were already kinfolk. So this just adds a layer to it, another layer, supposedly. And what does it mean to be restored? Well, it means I love you and all that. Okay, we got to move on. Not every day can be Valentine's Day. That's real nice. But it means that you're my vassal. So, as we like to say in the disco long ago, get down. Because you are my vassal and you're going to have vassal responsibilities. What? Yeah. As a vassal, you are subject to my authority. Not as King Henry, but as Duke Henry. They call it Aquitaine, but you realize it's really just the southern part. Eleanor, remember Eleanor of Aquitaine? She would no doubt turn over in her grave, but that's how it was. He was still called Duke of Aquitaine. So he could strut around and say, yeah, I'm legally a French Duke, But the point is that this would only lead to more issues between the French and the English. You say, why? Why? Because ultimately, job number one for the French is to get the English completely out. It's like they got some now. What is it they say at the football games? Push them back, push them back. Yeah, that's the idea. Take them to the Pyrenees. Yeah. But basically, there's not a point at which we want them to be there and let's all have an Anglo-French world. We know, of course, coming to a place near you, there's going to be 100 Years' War. And that's coming up in the 14th century. So that, and by historical times, that's not very long. Right, but this would be more or less a way to say we've made peace, we can work together in the interest of all people, and it will make our family gatherings a lot happier. Our wives have both wanted this. So it's a strange, very strange agreement, because even with Lord and vassal, every incident, of course, will now be a subject of dispute. But you say, how could that be? Well, he's now my vassal. So he had basically accepted my legal authority. So what will happen then, if his Gascon officials do something that our officials consider no, gee, I guess we need to bring it to the authorities. And you say, you mean there's some nitpicking? Yes, indeed there is. This is some serious stuff for them. I've seen, I've looked at it. This is called appeals from the English authority to the French authority. And we know, because we read it in the news. We all, oh, they love to go on appeals. And our murders, yes, our murder mysteries, yes. Love to have appeals. So you think this was still around back then? You bet it was. And it comes from something called the Parliament of Paris. Now, don't go looking for the Parliament of Paris now. It was nice in its day, but they abolished it during the French Revolution, which saddens me. But it was more or less coming out of the royal court and developing as the highest judicial body. There were lots of parliaments, Parlement. There were lots of parliaments in the major cities as the center of royal authority. But obviously, Louis's court there in Paris was the first. And of course, who is the biggest, most troublesome vassal of all? Of course, you guessed it, Henry III. So the whole business of having appeals from Gascon. Now, you say, what about appeals from London? Oh, I don't think so. Because, they can do as they please, darts, ale, all of that. That's their little red wagon. But over here, I'm the Lord. Well, he didn't say it that way because he's venerable. Saintly people don't talk that way, but basically he says, I'm doing this all for the sake of righteousness. So the idea is, how is this going to work? Badly, very badly. So you have peace of sorts, but you also have lots of things. And I'll give you a perfect example. You'll have officials of Louis hanging out in the borders of the English territory, said, I think that's really a royal right. So you're going to get written up for that, maybe get parents. But you see, the idea of all of that relationship is going to create problems. And remember, the English administrators, I don't know if exactly they had the greatest reputation, considering the trials of Simon de Montfort. Let's not forget him. He had long been the administrator. And obviously there was some discontent about English rule. I mean, who wouldn't like to be in that particular area? but it's very troublesome, and the bills are very great, and the income is not as great as you would like. And who gets the blame for all of this? You guessed it, Henry III. And what do we do about it? Well, in the suggestion box, we might say the king needs to get some new advisors and work on his kingly programs and get it straightened out. I think we'll start there for our last time for this term, leaving you there at the Parliament of Paris with people appealing against ducal authority. I know. So, yeah.
Canonized on May 16th,
I'm sorry.
canonized on May 16th, 1920.
Oh, 20. Yes. Oh. Y'all please don't give me a bad evaluation. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thank you.